if I want to do other things, I have to pick between this vehicle that I love and other aspirations, being debt free, like, you know. So the light bulb just went off, and I just kind of like, I'm like, man, I thought about it. I sat on it for like a couple of days. I kid you not, bro. In a week, that car was listed on Auto Trader. Took pictures on my camera, put it up, started getting some offers, and just like that, sold the car, got rid of $35K in debt, took that money, had some money saved up, and I bought a cash car. I made sure I was happy enough with it, but I'm like, this will do, because basically the conversation I had with myself was like, if I want to go where I want to go, these are the steps that I needed to take. I need to have less baggage. I need to be more nimble. I need to be more free. And at that time, I started kind of like seeing the writings on the wall that I didn't want to be a corporate accountant for the rest of my life.
Welcome to the Introspektiv Podcast, a series of insightful conversations where aspiring individuals reflect, engage, and share their journeys. For most of us, life is filled with hustling and bustling, with little to no time for stillness or to make sense of the winding roads that got us here. So tune in, because we're going to dig deep on what the pursuit of happiness really means and what often gets in the way of unlocking our greatness. What's up, friends? I'm Andre Khan Jr., and welcome to the Introspektiv Podcast. Listen, I'm excited because we're going to be talking today with my good friend, my brother, my peer mentor, Fola Lawson. So Fola not only has an amazing story, man, he has an undergraduate and graduate degree in finance from the University of Houston, and he is the founder and creative director of Southern Gents Menswear. So today we're going to be talking about designing your own life. Do you have the focus? Do you have the grit? Do you have the ability to sacrifice to get what you want down the line and really stick to your goals? We're going to be talking about family. We're going to be talking about being Black in America and what minority-owned companies can be doing better to really shake up their industry. So thanks for coming along for the ride. Let's get it. Fola Lawson.
Yes, sir. That's
Fola
me.
Lawson. Brother, man, look, I mean, I thought this would never happen, man. I got to be honest with you.
What are we doing here?
Well, you know what we're doing here, man. This is the Introspektiv Podcast. Mm-hmm. And I just want to have an insightful conversation with you. You're an inspiring individual.
Let's do it, man.
Right?
You've been pushing me for what? This is like 2 years straight?
Bro, 2 years.
But we're finally making it happen, so I'm excited.
Bro, 2 years strong, 2 years straight, man. And I'm just actually looking over some questions here, man. You know what's wild is that I'm excited about this, right? But I'm excited that the world is finally going to get to hear some of the stuff that you be telling me behind the scenes. Yeah.
That's going to be a good or bad thing. I don't know. But if it's bad, I'm blaming you. If it's bad, I'm blaming you.
Hey, look, man, it's up to you. It's up to you what you want to put out, man. But, I mean, looking at what obviously Southern Gents has become, looking at who you have become, you know, since your departure from where you came from, and I don't want to tell your story, bro. So who are you? Who are you, folks?
Man, I'm just a regular guy like everybody else. I'm just a regular guy trying to find his way. And it's hard for me to talk about who I am without talking about where I came from, you know, because even for me, I don't really think about who I am. I'm just like another person trying to find their way and try to find meaning out of life and try to make life enjoyable for the most part. Like we always talk about, every time we hang out, every time we go to happy hour, it's like, you know, what are we doing here? Like, are you happy? Am I happy? Like, what are we going through? Exactly.
How can you not be happy at happy hour?
I mean, happy hour is a phrase. Like, I think most people go to happy hour to, like, it's escapism for all of us.
Right.
You know, it's a time for us to kind of like breathe, exhale, like decompress from the week. But like, is happy hour really happy hour? And that's the dope thing about this conversation or this podcast is that this is true happy hour, because with happy hour, here's what happens. We usually get out, we find a bar we like, we get some drinks, we start like talking about things that are going on socially, but we're not really getting in-depth conversations. Sometimes we do, but we're not always lucky enough to have that kind of conversation that we all want to have. Like, Dre, how are you doing? How was your week? What's next? Oh, you're getting into this. Tell me a little bit more about that.
You know what's wild is like our wives don't think we talk at all.
They don't think. Explain that to me.
They don't think. Well, put it like this.
They think that we just like taking shots away.
As a wife, if you hear happy hour, you don't realize that what's actually going on here is really an in-depth conversation, man. And that's why I'm saying I've grown so much from our relationship and the ways that you've challenged me, the ways you pushed me.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. And I don't want to spend the whole, session like patting you on the back or anything like that, bro. But
I know that's not your style.
It's not. So we talk a lot about sports, man. We talk a lot about, what that's done for you, man, in your corporate experience, and and growing up. So just kind of unpack that for us, man. Like from high school and what you saw and what football taught you and how you sort of move that and use that in your corporate world.
Man, that's a good question. So sports is an interesting one. I used to play soccer growing up. So I grew up in Nigeria. And
that's why you don't like American football. Go ahead.
That's funny.
Makes sense now.
So I grew up playing soccer. Long story short, I moved to the States with my mom and my cousin when I was like 12, 13 years old. Right. Soccer was not that popular, right? And it's like, you know how it is, teenage years, like peer pressure kicks in. Yeah. So, I'm like, nobody's playing soccer. None of my new friends are playing soccer. What's this American football thing? So I had an older cousin who was playing football at Hastings High School, and he was really good, right? And I would see his helmet. I would see he was like jacked. He played fullbacks. Shout out to my big bro Biodun Janado. Yeah, and I learned a lot from him. He would always he took pride in his appearance. He would always cut his hair every weekend. He would go to the gym, football after practice. And then I always wanted to play football, but then I'm going to say a lot, but so in early years in high school, I was a smaller kid. I was like 5'1" in like 9th grade. And man, I had a bully. So I had this guy who was always picking on me and stuff. And I was like, man, this dude's only picking on me because he's bigger than me, So, and I knew in football, like you would lift weights. So I'm like, man, I got to get swole. I knock this dude out. Like one day I'm going to get swole and knock his ass out.
Right.
So, I mean, that was another push to just make me want to play football because I kind of knew that you would become like a little bit more masculine, like the aggression, and it would test me. So like my mom didn't want me to play football. So I don't know. You're a Florida boy, so you know how we do.
County,
no. You know how we do. It's Texas. It's Texas, baby.
County, man.
So you had to get your physical to like try out for the football team. I don't know what y'all. I don't even know if y'all got rules in Florida.
Oh wow, okay.
But anyway, you had to get a physical. You had to do certain things, and nobody would take me, like because my mom didn't want me to play football, so it was like kind of a hassle.
Yeah.
I figured it out. I somehow, some way. I think it was Dr. T or someone, some doctor in Highway 6, got to Dr. T's office, got my physical, got cleared, tried out, made the team. And the rest was history, man. But in essence, from football, I learned so much. I learned team spirit, right? Mm-hmm. And watching film, lifting weights, doing all the things you have to do in football is never about you. It's always about the team. Every play, there's a play call, right? Like there's a blitz or something. You're accountable. We're playing cover 2, cover 3, cover 4.
Right.
Everyone has an assignment. And if one person blows their assignment, the whole playbook goes to shit. Mm-hmm. Or it's a touchdown. I played defense. So, I played safety and outside linebacker, believe it, somewhere.
Outside linebacker?
Yeah, it's high school. But, most of it was DB play. So, one thing they always taught us was contain the edge. And essentially, you know what that means. Well, you're running back.
No.
You know what that means?
Pop Warner days, I set the edge as a defensive end.
Okay, you got to set the edge.
Yeah, I know
if you don't set the edge, it's like you run the risk of having spill. Running back could spill out. They get outside containment. Receiver is on the cornerback. If he gets outside the cornerback, that's touchdown every time. So it was just this little, nuances that, now looking back, I really didn't know what I was learning.
Yes, man.
But it was like, there's so many lessons. And, our coaches used to always tell us, you're only as good as how you practice.
Right.
You can't just show up. You can't just turn it on. But at that age, it sounds like people just yelling at you. You don't really know what they're telling you.
Right.
But as you grow older in life, you start to realize like, man, that was on point. Like all these things are facts. Like you always have to show up. You have to be committed. You have to learn to be selfless. So essentially, I learned a lot from football. I enjoyed it. I would argue that my high school days was some of like my personal like times of like biggest enjoyment, satisfaction. I got a lot from it. One thing our coach always told us, because, you would always have guys drop out, like they didn't want to play anymore. Mm-hmm. We would have like team meetings and, one time our Coach Gerber, got us together, and I never forget this conversation. Some guys wanted to drop off the team. They didn't want to play, blah, 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 whatever the story was. They had to help out at home. And he said, you guys have to make a decision, playing football or going to get a job. You'll have the rest of your life to work.
Okay.
So this is your only chance to play a
part-time
sport.
job or something like that.
Yeah, to help out. Like everybody wanted money, like, get some new J's or FUBU jersey, whatever, right?
FUBU jersey.
FUBU jersey, Fat Albert, whatever.
Man,
so
shout out FUBU.
Shout out to FUBU for real. Damon John is the man. But that always stuck with me because I'm like, he's right. This is an opportunity of a lifetime because we know most of us are not going to play in college. Most of us are definitely not going to make it to the NFL. So This is a lifetime opportunity. And even I thought about, getting a job. Like I always wanted a car. I'm a gearhead. I've always loved cars. So, I quite frankly was also considering just dropping football, going to get a job, maybe get this accurate integrity that I always wanted. But, I stuck with football. I'm glad I did. It taught me a lot of life lessons. And I don't know, man, it paid off. And now we're here.
Okay. So the reason I asked you that question, man, was I've seen, in playing football my entire life, throughout my corporate experience, you can tell that there's some people who've never been on a team before.
Ooh-wee.
Right?
That's facts.
Never. Like you say, oh, this is a team. This is, we're going to do this as a team. We're going to hold each other accountable, whatever. But you can tell the people who've been on a team and who haven't. And what was the time in your corporate career where you realized that this isn't the sort of team that I want to be on? What am I getting here that I can't do for myself?
Okay. So I think when I started in corporate, I started working at an accounting firm. I went to school for accounting, and I thought at least that I would just work there until I died. Like I was just kind of like, because my whole thing was like college education for me was always like the ticket. It was like the lottery ticket. By lottery ticket, I mean that I would be able, if I got my degree, I would be able to earn, it would give me the right to earn enough money to live the life that I wanted. So when I graduated and I had a job, everything was going great. I was making good money, making decent money, but you don't really know what good money is till you start living a lifestyle. And essentially, I had just enough money to like buy a nice car, stay in a nice apartment, and maybe take a couple of vacations every year. It was good money. But I think for me, what I learned very early in corporate America is that I worked all the time. I didn't know, and in those firms, they bleed you. I was working. So during busy season, you have to put in I worked for a middle market firm. So you have to put in 55 billable hours during busy season. That translates to 60 to 65 working hours a week. So, kids now think oh yeah, I got salary, whatever. I'm working at 8 to 5. Salary for us meant that we were working 10 hours, 12 hours on average, which, that was what, it was a different economy. There wasn't any it wasn't really social media. It wasn't really influencers. It wasn't. So if you wanted a successful lifestyle, it's just what you had to do.
That was the only path.
And I think I did it in my second year, going on my third year, my third busy season. I started to just get uninspired. I started to see, I pay attention a lot to my surroundings. I pride myself on self-awareness and just general awareness, period. And I was noticing that most of the people that I work with weren't happy, especially the people who were higher ups, executives, the managers. They were working all the time. And when they talked about, they barely even talked about their family. We spent more time at work than they did with their families. And for me, we would work in rooms. I was an auditor, so we'd work in teams.
And a team. This is a corporate team.
It was a corporate team.
A real team?
So a real team. So you'd have all the way from intern to staff, senior staff, and maybe a manager on the team. Teams of 3 to 4. And a lot of times we would just get stuck in a room wherever the client thought this is a space that we don't care about, we don't need, we'll get stuck in there. So it could be a conference room with no windows. And we're in this conference room for 3 to 4 weeks. Conference room, no windows, 3 to 4 weeks. You come into work in the morning, you get there at 7:30. sometimes, especially in the winter, it's still dark. And then you get off at like 8, 9, 10, it's still dark.
It's tough.
And after doing that for a year or two, it's just like, I started feeling like, man, life is passing me by.
Wow.
I'm like, people have gotten married, people have had babies, people have taken vacations, all this in 24 hours. And all I've been doing is sitting on this computer, writing tick marks and clearing comments or doing whatever I was doing. So I just started getting tired of it. And I always have been the type of person who I like to find meaning in my work. So I think for every person, you become an expert between 2 to 5 years doing the same thing over and over. So I wouldn't say like I was like a, best auditor in the world or anything, but I pretty much got the hang of what we were doing. I'm like, okay, we're going to come in here, check the files, make sure that the client's not doing anything suspicious or they're abiding by like general accounting principles and all that stuff. But after a while, I just started feeling like, what do I have to look forward to in life, right? Like, okay, another promotion next year, maybe. A raise, maybe, it was cool, but I just started getting real uninspired. And I think that was the first time for me, I started feeling like, but to back that up, you talked about teams.
Yeah.
We would have issues.
Who's your coach?
The coach.
You don't have to use any names. It's all good.
Yeah, but we would work in teams, but there would be issues. And whenever human beings, it's our nature to complain.
Yeah. Exactly.
And sometimes the complaints were BS, sometimes the complaints were valid. But one thing was consistent on every team that I was in. We would all have complaints, the valid complaints, if we park the complaints are like valid and not non-valid complaints. And nobody would ever do anything about the complaints. The leader of the team, if someone was being mistreated on the team, would never stand up for the person on the team. I just started seeing all these inconsistencies, and it was kind of like, do as I say, not as I do.
Cool.
And that's kind of like one of the big things I started taking away from corporate, started witnessing. So for me at this point, I had been through like my share of like bullying in high school. I'd gotten over that shit. Yeah. Like I'd play football, like whatever. I had a different mentality. So like in corporate, I never got bullied because I just wouldn't tolerate it. And whenever I never would tolerate it. And whenever it was something that I felt was unfair, I would speak up. But I noticed that not only other people wouldn't do the same thing. Other people who were in a position to speak up rarely ever did.
Right.
So that was kind of like what started turning me off. And I was like, I just wasn't a fan of like a lot of cultures that I was in. I've worked at some great places, and not every project that I was on or not every company I've been at had a negative culture, but I would say finding great culture is a rare one. And so that was something that stuck to me and taught me how important culture is, because I learned firsthand at that career that happy people work harder, work smarter.
That's true. And culture honestly is the company. If you really think about it, every company comes down to profit and loss, X's and O's.
It's all about the numbers, man. However we try to spin it.
Service that you're selling. Everyone's selling something at some point. So you're seeing all this stuff kind of unpacking and unfolding in the corporate world. Like, when did Gents just say, now's the time? When did you say, was this something that you did like while you worked and then you started doing your own thing?
So I think there was this space to where like I was in corporate and everything just started feeling routine. Like at this point, I was at a different company. I was working more of what's called industry, which is just like a traditional company, not a firm. So one of the greatest jobs I ever had, by the way. And I was just looking for something to like do in my spare time. So I had this random idea to like, it really wasn't like, the idea kind of was like to just create like professional networking hours, because I felt like, man, I would like to meet more people.
Oh, okay.
You see, like I would like to network. You see, that's essentially, we'll get there. But so I ran the ideas with some of my buddies, my older brother, Olu, and I ran the idea around like 5 to 8 people. 3 of those 8 people really loved it. Some were like, oh man, I love the idea, but it's not a great fit for me right now, which I really appreciated because they were transparent and honest. But of the 3 that really enjoyed the idea, I was like, hey, let's make something happen. Let's move forward. So the idea was just to like start creating like some kind of like gentleman blog. We really didn't know what we wanted to do with it, but we were like, okay, let's like, cause I also, man, this was like back in like 2011. This was like, when did Instagram start? I think like 2012. Yeah, this is pre-Instagram. Like there was Facebook, but there was no Instagram. So like a lot of things that people think are normal right now were like so rare.
Yeah, that's true.
Like there was no H&M in Houston. Like if you wanted, like back then it was like skinny ties, not even skinny jeans, skinny tie. You had to order your stuff online to get it. So we were just like, hey, let's put a blog together. Let's put an educational blog, because like we weren't seeing a lot of guys dressing up. Like we weren't seeing a lot of classy. I know you're all about class. So we weren't seeing a lot of classy things. So we were like, let's do something. Let's put something together. Long story short, we organized somehow a happy hour at the Sam Houston Hotel. I don't know if it's still called the Sam Houston Hotel downtown. We had to persuade them like, hey, we're not trying to throw a club party or anything. We just want to do a professional networking hour. They're like, yeah.
What was that like? I mean, how did you even convince them to do that?
That was tough because, everybody, like the only thing around at the time was just like clubs, like nightclubs.
Right. And
we were trying to do something a little bit different, and they actually listened, and I'm glad they did, because it gave us an opportunity to present and communicate ideas. And basically what we said was, hey, we're trying to get people in an environment where right after work they can come in, have a drink, socialize, network. Like it should be an all-for like happy hour type thing. And the hotel really wanted that, because every hotel has a lounge or a bar. And essentially they want customers. They want people to like frequent the space. Like it's like an appetizer to the hotel, because if you come in a hotel bar, say you go to W or you go to Hotel Derrick or Zaza, wherever, if you really like what you see, you'll consider getting a room at some point at the hotel. So for them, I think they realized that it was a good opportunity. They just had to make sure we were going to do what we were saying we were going to do. So I hit up my guy and my brother, a dear friend of mine, Big Reeks. And I was like, Reeks, man, we want to do this happy hour, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And, Reeks and I had been in conversation. We met on Facebook, and we met in a Facebook group randomly, and we kind of like had the same wave of thought. So he was trying to start a brand called Waxaholics, and I was trying to put together S-Gents. So we would meet at Starbucks and like just discuss our ideas. We didn't know what we were doing, but we were just motivating each other. Like, man, that sounds dope. Like, you should do it. Man, that sounds dope. And it's like, it's crazy how much you really need that. But anyway, Reeks was also a DJ. So when I told him, hey, like, we have this bar downtown, they're like, okay, we're letting us do whatever. He's like, man, I'll DJ, like whatever. And he's like, I'll DJ for free. So here we have a complimentary DJ, one of the best DJs in the city. I'm like, man, I'm gonna somehow try to, at that time I was dabbling in photography. I was like, I'm trying to make a dope flyer. I hit up my buddy Tunde. I'm like, Tunde, let's do a photo shoot. We did a photo shoot, put a flyer together. I don't even know how we promoted it. I think we just put it on Facebook or something and just like invited all our friends. Like that was also back in the day when you would have like Facebook events and you could like invite like all your friends literally. Yeah. So I mean, that's what we did, man. Like,
and they would decline or accept, and it's like, oh.
And we got like at least 30 to 50 people. It was a really small room, but it was nice and cozy. And people came out, like guys were sharply dressed, women were dressed nicely. Everybody was it was like a different vibe. It wasn't clubby. And you can tell everybody just missed, even if they'd never been before, it was like, man, like, I want more of this.
They missed those events? Okay.
They like missed having a feeling of just being able to like communicate with people, because, it's like you go from lunch to like nightclub. There's really happy hour and Sunday Fun Day is a new phenomenon. It's like it's not really, at least not a happy hour event, right? And when the lights go dim, it's just different. Like you're not talking to anybody. It's loud music. This is going on. So like just regular lighting, nice bars, Rockets highlights or whatever being shown on the TV. Like you can walk up to anybody, guy or girl, and you can say, hey, what do you work at? Oh, blah, blah, how was your day? Like it's such a rare conversation, a rare space for a conversation that most of us take for granted. And we didn't even know that. We were just like, oh, okay, like let's just create something like for the culture.
And then COVID came.
Nah, that was way before. That was way before COVID. But
I'm saying the COVID of classic, right? Because what it did was it made it very hard for us to have those casual conversations, genuine conversations, and in a nice way, man, where you got a nice lady, nice gentleman. But I guess what I'm asking you and what I'm trying to point out is, how do you think people should see the value in the brand and the story of here you are, you're creating something, right? You're creating something with your friends. You're creating something with your partners. It's intended to be an experience.
Yeah.
So what should that experience be?
So going back to the events, what we learned was everybody just wants to feel special. As human beings, we all crave the same thing. We want to be respected. We want to be accepted. And we want to be appreciated.
Right.
And that's things that are missing in the fabric of the culture. So that's what we learned doing events. But we also knew like events were like, it was difficult to like make a business out of doing events. It's difficult. That becomes like very like clubby. We realized we had to get a liquor license, and we were like, why don't we just, make this into an apparel brand? And hopefully that would like allow us to do things that, whatever we wanted to do. So the idea was like, let's make some men's accessories. It would allow us to blog more and talk about men's style and like things that men are going through. We started partnering with other establishments like Movember or like Kendra Scott Houston, and we would do like the signature events. So we came out with an accessory line, and the goal was like, if we could get this accessory line in a store like Macy's, Dillard's, we'll be set. Didn't quite work out that way. But to answer your question, I think what we learned was it's a beautiful thing to make everybody feel valued in life, right? Like Southern Gents is not about the clothes. It's about delivering a feeling. And we believe that everybody should be able to feel great, empowered, unstoppable. Whatever you want to achieve in life, you can accomplish. The clothes are just a gateway. And like my college professor, shout out to Dr. Gamble, used to always tell us in our accounting class, when you look good, you feel good. So there's a sense of when you put on a nice fedora, a nice bow tie, a nice suit, your manners change.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You're not using the same slangs. You're not going to the same places. You're like, I'm clean tonight. I'm going to a different spot, Right. So it's just like a subconscious state of flow that you accomplish when you start to clean up your physical. Does that answer your question?
That makes sense. And when you said when you quoted Dr. Campbell, I thought about Dr. Sanders.
Dr. Sanders,
I look good, you play good. When you play good, you pay good. When you pay good, you eat good.
I love it.
Good, you live good.
I love it.
Right. So I guess that kind of answers my question about exactly what you want people to see out of it. Man, I know a lot of people must come to the brand and without really having a whole lot of context, they want to in a way be a part of it. Like, how are you being inclusive of the people who want to be a part of the brand? And I don't mean necessarily in a way to work internally with the brand. Like, how is the brand connecting with the community?
That's a good question. And we get this question a lot. What are you guys doing for the community? What are you guys doing for the community? I would say right now what we're doing for the community is to remain in business. And, I think a lot of people just throw that out there, but 99% of all businesses fail. We have a lot of ambitions as Southern Gents, the entire Southern Gents teams. There's a lot that we want to do, but right now our number one priority is stay in business. It's tougher out here for minority-owned businesses, small businesses, Black-owned businesses, especially with COVID now on the horizon. So our biggest thing is, we got to stay alive.
Hold on, bro. You just said something that was like, I don't know.
Stop me if I'm going too fast.
It kind of rose me. You said in the wrong way. It said, you said, as a minority-owned business, it's harder. What do you mean by that? Like, what's harder about it?
When we first started, we didn't really know how to market our brand because it was kind of like in the infancy of social media. So we were leaning a lot towards like the online platforms, but the online platforms aren't what they are now.
Right.
I don't even think back then you could run ads, it was kind of like when we started, a lot of the things were like shout out page. And the biggest, you remember men, like all the men with class, all the men's fashion, all these pages. Those pages, at least in the early days, didn't post a lot of black people.
Oh, wow. So
we started to figure out, like, man, how are we going to let people know that we exist? Mm-hmm. I remember an HR director that I worked with, who I was great friends with, one of the companies I worked with, he was like, man, I love your accessory line. I love everything about it. But I mean, if I didn't know you, I wouldn't even know how to find you. He's like, how are you going to get people to find you? And I didn't have the answer, but I'm like, man, he's right. Like, how do we, besides taking a $75,000 ad in GQ, which we definitely could not afford, right. You know, so when I say it's harder, race plays a factor because now it's a little different because, you know, social media is giving us all a voice, but it's harder. Everything is harder. Manufacturing is harder. Speaking to, in any business that you're in, if you're at least in the product business, you need a manufacturer. Right. If you're in a service business, you're providing a service. So would you disagree that if we're in a service business and you're a black person, knocking on doors as a black male is way different than being, say, like a Caucasian or maybe even Hispanic? It's like we're viewed as a threat in the community. And that's like really like a lot of our motivation for Southern Gents is to like defy the stereotype that black men aren't a threat. So for us, our main...
Oh, no, we are very much so a threat.
Yeah, but our main ambition is to clean up what media has portrayed us about minorities, specifically black men, are, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we're not thugs, we're not ignorant, we're not uneducated. And so just putting a fedora on when you step out, you'll be surprised how different people treat you. Like, it's so crazy. You know, it's like, you know, everybody wants to say like, oh, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, this, that. That's what people do. Walk in a dealership with shorts and an Air Max and see what happens.
Exactly. They won't even come up to you.
And then go to the same dealership with a suit, not a suit and a tie, a suit and a t-shirt and a t-shirt and a nice pair of loafers. And just, you know, if you can, put a GoPro in your pocket and document the entire experience.
Man, you know, what's wild about that is, you know, all of my heroes are killed in suits. Right?
Wow, that's
Martin
powerful.
Luther King, you know, Martin Luther King, man, Malcolm, you know, they were all killed in suits. And what's wild is...
What do you mean by that? What does that even mean? Where are you going with this?
So what's wild is, I guess what I'm saying is, we knew who they were, right? We had an opportunity to get to know who they were. We had an opportunity to get to know what they were all about. And they were afforded that opportunity. So one of the most powerful things, man, about Southern Gents, and I've always said this, is it's not about the clothes. Right? It's about what the clothes represents. Right. It's about carefully selecting things and wanting to present yourself in such a way after the work has been done. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the biggest things that I've learned over my corporate career and, you know, really through life is that you can't just put crap in a glittery package and expect, you know, for it not to still smell real bad. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So you got to do the work. And so walk me through that, man. How you overcame being black and actually, you know, getting these appointments with vendors and, you know, because I know you've actually gone over, you know, to China, you know, some of these other places in Italy and visited. How was that? How was that received?
I would say content is king, and you really have to be patient and walk before you crawl. You got to deliver. Everybody's a customer. It's just not the person who's buying the product, right? That's the number one customer, but your suppliers are also your customers. So every step of the way, what I learned is that you're making promises to everyone. And manufacturing is tough because in this day and age, everybody wants to make something. Everybody feels that they can become the next whatever, the next big thing. And so what that does is it puts a lot of pressure on the manufacturing side, because now with online access, AliExpress, everybody knows these platforms. Like you can reach manufacturers. They're getting hit up every day. And so now it's like they're the girl, you know, and everyone's trying to date them. It's a fact. And so a great factory has years of expertise. They have a lot of money invested in their business. They have huge facilities. They have hundreds of millions of dollars in equipment. They usually have tens to hundreds of workers. So if they're going to accept a new customer, it's a risk because it's like saying you wanted somebody to come do some home improvement in your house. I got to come out. I got to measure. I got to pick. You got to pick out materials and stuff like that. So they're depending on you to succeed. Otherwise, they just lost money. So manufacturing has been difficult because we've got a lot of doors shut in our face. We've also had bad experience with manufacturers. It's also like a grimy game because they're also out to make money. But what I've personally learned firsthand with manufacturing is that it's all built on relationships. So if in order for us to succeed as a brand, it's not about the clothes, but we have to have great clothes. Every person, every company has an it. What are you known for? What is your it factor? We're known for great product, great menswear product, and now we also have unisex products as well. So manufacturing is like number one because no matter what the brand message is or this, that, whatever, however we try to spin it, if the product is trash, you spend your hard-earned money trying to get whatever type of product. If you're not happy with it, you're not going to come back. That's the bottom line. So manufacturing is something that we can't afford to skimp on.
Right.
And in order for us to get good manufacturing, it's an opportunity cost for them. They have to turn down someone else to like make our product. So when they make our product, now the pressure is on us to, first, we have to make sure it's meets standard, right? And then second, we have to make sure we come back. Which is why when you ask me the question of what we're doing for the community, we got to make sure we come back.
Yeah, because
if we don't come back,
people
right, all that stuff that we say, all the charitable things that people want to do, charity is a luxury. Only people who are in privileged positions get to participate in charity, and that's a fact. Like business is not a charity.
That's tough.
So when you come, you got to come correct. Like you're laying it all on the line, like your supply is depending on you. And if they don't feel like you can come back with more orders, and you can continue to grow as a business, they're going to give up on you. Okay. If they give up on you, your customers definitely will give up on you.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot of pressure in the manufacturing space. So how we've overcome it is just making sure that we're only designing stuff that we would wear and not stuff that we would wear this summer or, this winter or like for just like a brunch party, like, man, I want to have this. I want to have this shit forever.
Yeah.
If I won't have a piece of clothing or boot or whatever in my closet, it's not coming out. Everything on our website is literally in competition because for us also it's an opportunity cost. We don't have finite dollars. So assuming we have 100 to 150 product collection, and assuming our entire basket of inventory is worth 50 grand, 100 grand, like that's literally all we have. So every capital outlay, we have to decide how we want to spend it. Just as we as individuals, whenever you get paid X $1,000 a month, 4,000, 5,000, you have to decide how you want to spend every dollar. Some things are not negotiable. You got to pay your rent. You got to pay your mortgage. You got to pay your student loan. And then the discretionary stuff is where like things get dicey. What is my best use for the money? How much should I save? How much should I invest? So those are decisions we have to make every day.
Who taught you that?
Taught me what?
You before, so the this, the that, the budgeting, the this, all of the business sense that you have. Did you just get that from work? Were you brought up that way? Like, who taught you this? Because I feel like...
Man, nobody taught me. Man, that's life, man. Right. Life's taught me that.
Life taught me
that. And, man, we're going to go into a whole other topic.
There right there, bro.
So what I learned in business, I think a lot of us start businesses out of, like, passion and, like... We want to do better. Like every business is like created to solve a problem in a sense. Like if a business is not solving a problem, it really doesn't exist if you think about it.
Yeah.
So I've learned the hard way that as people, we create businesses trying to solve problems that we have, but we also think that starting a business will give us a better life and will like, oh man, my business is going to make me a millionaire. I never have to do this again type of thing. So, man, I learned you got to clean up your life first. I learned that the hard way. And there was a period for me where it was kind of getting difficult to grow the business because I was working and I was, my business partners and I were running the brand like it was a night shift job. And it started getting hard to grow it. And it's a long story, but, and a couple of things. The first thing was I was dating my girlfriend at the time. And I had this little event that I got picked up for with GQ in Dallas. So, I was going out for the project and she was riding with me and she was just playing some stuff. I don't know what she was playing. She was listening to something. I'm like, and I started hearing this guy talking about paying off debt, doing this and the other. I'm like, what the? It's Dave Ramsey. Okay. I didn't know who Dave Ramsey was at the time. So she would always listen to this stuff. And I thought it made a lot of sense. One thing about me is if I hear something that makes sense, that's like crack cocaine to me. Like I cannot receive useful information and do nothing about it. But whatever we were listening to in the car was talking about how, paying off debt is the new American dream, it's freedom. And I'm like, man, and at the time I was like, man, like, Southern Gents, like, yeah, I love doing this. But it's like at the time, like I still had student loans. I had a car note. I had some debt obligation. We didn't have a house yet. And those were like big questions in my life. Like what's next for me? Like, how am I going to get there? And I'm like, man, I started thinking if I was able to get rid of some of like my debt, like things probably would be a lot easier. And then the second light bulb that went off is I was hanging out, happy hour again, going to happy hour with a couple of my friends, Tunde and my other friend, Lee. And Lee was talking about, I don't know if it was very much so in a Dave Ramsey concept. He was talking about how he just paid off his student loan. I'm like, boy, you paid off your motherfucking student loan? Okay. Yeah, I was like, what? And I'm like, man, I ain't paid off my car note.
I didn't start touching.
And I was like, whoa. And I'm like, man, like, tell me more. He was like, yeah, man, I just been throwing money at it. And I was like, and I just started thinking about everything. At this time, I had like,
But were you even thinking about your student loans? Really?
I was thinking about my student loans, but I was thinking about student loans in terms of the payment plan. Like I got they give you 10 years or whatever they give you, like, man, 2021. I think it was 2021. And that year was probably like 2013. I'm like, man, it's 7 years, 6 years, whatever, I'm going to be done. Whatever year it was. And I started listening to him talk about, and he's 2 years younger than I am, by the way. So I was like, whoa, something ain't adding up. And I just started thinking about like, dang, he was telling me he was like paying like $1,000, $1,200. I'm like, I can't pay that because X, Y, Z. I can't pay that because I'm paying money on this or I have this, whatever. So I just started thinking and a light bulb went off like, okay, I think I had like the car I owned at the time, I owned $30K on. And then I had another $35K in student loans. So I was like 65 M3. Stick shift. Love that car.
Gotcha.
E90. 6-speed.
Okay, I don't know about that.
Yeah, you don't know nothing about that. But so I was like, this car is in my way. This car is in my way, but because I can't pay off my student loans because when I take away the rent I paid for the apartment that I was living at the time, like a significant amount of income went into paying a car note. So I mean, I'm like, I started feeling. Another thing is I'm my biggest critic. I criticize myself internally a lot, not in a bad way, but I hold myself accountable. And I'm just like, okay, if I want to do other things, I have to pick between this vehicle that I love and other aspirations being debt free, So the light bulb just went off and I just kind of I'm like, man, I thought about it. I sat on it for like a couple of days. I kid you not, bro. In a week, that car was listed on Auto Trader. Took pictures on my camera, put it up, started getting some offers. And just like that, so the car got rid of $35K in debt, took that money, took whatever extra I sold it for. I think I sold it for maybe like $38, $39, had some money saved up, and I bought a cash car. Bought a 03 Audi wagon. I'm a gearhead, so I still made it look nice, did whatever, made sure I was happy enough with it. But I'm like, this will do, because basically the conversation I had with myself was like, if I want to go where I want to go, these are the steps that I needed to take. I need to have less baggage. I need to be more nimble. I need to be more free. And at that time, I started kind of like seeing the writings on the wall that I didn't want to be a corporate accountant for the rest of my life. Like that was like my personal goal, because I feel like I had a lot of things that I wanted to do that I wasn't able to do at my job at the time. You know, like I had a lot of creative ideas. I had a lot of business ideas. There were risks I wanted to take. It's like being a kid. You have all these things that you want to get out in life. But you can't have an entitlement mentality about it. You don't get to just do what you want. You know, you have to put yourself in the position. At least that's what I realized. You have to put yourself in a position to make certain moves. So you can't just talk the talk, man. You got to walk that walk.
It's tough, man. Listen, man, boys got to be about it. Boys got to be about it. So, man, you talk about this whole, designing your life thing, right? You know, just being strategic.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you basically kind of just said Dave Ramsey introduced you to the debt snowball, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, you had friends who influenced you one way or the other. So, I mean, what happened after that? You paid off some debt. Then what? What's the next step?
I think the biggest thing came to like,
that's why a lot of people can't actually stick to those things. They don't have a long-term goal.
I started figuring like, you know, we could build a business. At this point, we'd had Southern Gents. We're making decent money selling accessories, not enough to like do anything with, but the proof of concept had started being accomplished. Like people were buying stuff, right? We were selling stuff, and it was like, what do we, you know, making decisions in life. So at the time, I told my girlfriend, now wife, Callie, I'm like, so we had gotten engaged, and I was like, okay, I had sold the car. You know, so I only had student loans. I was just throwing money at it. I paid that off. After I sold the car, I was able to pay my student. I had like 6-7 years left on my student loans. So I was able to pay off my student loans in a year after selling the car, because I just tripled up on my payments. And I just kind of like literally threw my money at it. Because I had
CFO money right there.
I had to, yeah, right. Senior accountant money at the time, just senior accountant at the time, at least. And so Callie and I had gotten engaged, and you know, we always used to have we try to over communicate, and we talk about a lot of stuff. And I was like, okay, babe, what do we want to do? We could have a wedding, or because we only had a certain amount of money in the bank. Say we had about 10 grand. Like, we can throw a wedding. That's not even enough for a wedding. We need more. Or we can take this money and put it as a down payment on a house. You know what she told me? She's like, I'm tired of going to the damn apartment in Washington. Let's buy a house.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, okay. It's like, nice. Okay.
See, that's so she's your wife, bro.
Man, it's like, you know, the power of women for us as men is like, so underrated, man. We can get to that topic later. We'll talk all day on that. But, you know, that's what we did. And that's kind of like what happened next. So we bought the house, and it was kind of like the same concept, right? Like, we bought this house. We're living in the house. And we already knew before we bought a house, we're like, let's buy a house that we're not going to be held captive by, right? Let's buy a house that we could get underneath, because like I said, she was listening to Dave Ramsey before I did. And if the concept, so she's more like, she seeks out a lot of information, but I'm like the bigger doer. Like, I'm like, don't bring it to me or don't run it by me, because
you're more pragmatic.
Man, we gonna make it happen. So I'm like, I don't want to hear about it if we ain't gonna do it. Like, so, I mean, once I'm sold on the concept, like, I'm usually all in. So we talked about it, and then so our task became like finding a house that we could reasonably afford and we were happy with. So I'm like, you know, we started doing house searches, and you know, we found this house. She was like, let's go see it, blah, blah, blah. So our wedding, we just like, for our wedding, we were like, let's just have like family and friends. Like, let's just do something small. So we had a court wedding, and we had like basically a reception at the new house that we decided to buy. So our wedding was our house, because, you know, we were like, we had to really think, what would we be happiest with? What would make us happy? And what she told me is like, I would be miserable if we had this beautiful wedding and we came back to this same apartment that we were living in, which we've been dating in. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's like, you know, women got their own intuition. So who are we to get in the way? So that kind of was like liberating. because I had friends or like family members who had spent a lot of money on their wedding, and I'd heard complaints about how they regretted it. They were still paying on weddings like years after. That's a real thing. I mean, because weddings are so expensive these days. So that was just, I mean, because for us, we're trying to connect the dots to our dream. We both wanted to be like more free. We wanted a certain lifestyle to where we can kind of do the things that we wanted to, not work like this utopian, like, oh, I'm gonna start a business and not work, but like spend our days how we wanted to spend our days, whatever that meant. If it was working on stuff that we were more passionate about, or even if it meant making less money. But that, again, that's like a privilege. Is not something that you can just, if you have a lot of obligations, it becomes impossible. But long story short, we bought the house. We kind of, buying a house, you own a house.
Yeah.
It's a hassle to own a house. Like, so we had to furnish the house, blah, blah, blah.
It's a lot.
But once I had already been through the debt payoff. She didn't really have student loan debt. She was still in school when we met. So I was able to help manage her college finances better than I did, because I kind of like took out more student loans, a little bit more than I needed to probably. So she was able to not take in as much debt. So basically, once I paid off my student loan, we were almost debt free. But, then we got the house and we had more debt. Long story short, because I had learned how to paying off my student loans was one of the most empowering things that I ever did for myself, because it just showed me like, man, you could do this. And I owed $45,000 in student loan debt after my undergrad and graduate degree at U of H for accounting. So being able to pay off the $30,000 that was supposed to take me 8 years was so empowering. So when we got the house, I set this plan. I'm an accountant, so I put together a spreadsheet. I'm like, okay, if we do this, you make this, I make this, whatever. We have to live this way. Like, I think we got cell phone conversations. I'm literally telling her like, babe, we're going to have $20 for liquor every week. We ain't going out. We're going to make lunch. We had this plan. And like, it was aggressive. It was tough, but I was like, 2 years. If we do this for 2 years, we'll be able to pay off the crib.
Bro, okay. So, and if you don't, can I just go ahead and
ask me anything?
Can I ruin the end of the story here?
Sure.
Okay. So you eventually pay off the house, right? And I guess something that I really wanted to expose really about Southern Gents and the meticulous and strategic way you really go about everything, man. Like everything behind the scenes. Right? No one ever sees that. They think, let me just go start a brand. It is so much work. There's so much focus. There's so much sacrifice that takes place. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, so tell me about like some of the things that you feel like you sacrificed along the way. Because I know this is in designing your life. There's got to be some give and take, man. You can't have everything, right?
Can't have everything. Who said that, Drizzy?
Yeah.
You definitely can't have everything, man. Life is about opportunity costs. We talk about that all the time when we go out. Like, life is about opportunity costs. Whenever there's an issue, like, somebody talk about at home with wifey, somebody talk about with you as one of my best friends.
Yeah.
What's the alternative? So, I mean, it's definitely a lot of work, a lot of pressure, a lot of sacrifices. Specifically, the biggest sacrifices, the first one would be walking away from my corporate job, which I was getting paid like, I don't know, like mid six figures, 120, 130K a year gig. But, it was just great money. Mm-hmm. I wasn't happy anymore. I was overdoing accounting. For me, I wanted to do more. I felt like I used to hate my career because I was like, man, I started off making like, in accounting, you start off making like 45, 48K. And, I mean, you gradually work your way up, but after a while, it was just good money. Like I didn't feel fulfilled. So, I had to make a decision, like personal dreams, ambition, building something, with and for family and friends, or great money. So that was the biggest sacrifice, right? Because like we all value security. So, but in business, you'll learn, for any entrepreneur, you'll learn that you have to make a decision between what matters more, like guaranteed high income or taking a chance on yourself. And I chose to take a chance on myself. Other sacrifices are like, I don't get to spend as much time as I would love with my wife or with our kid, Miles. But that's temporary. The goal is to like work hard now and like be able to bring more people in the fold, grow the business, be in a privileged position to be able to bring on more staff, a bigger team to like run things, do a lot of things that I've done, my business partners have done. Like we've all made sacrifices, working 8, 9 hours, 10 hours a day on a corporate job and then coming home to do Southern Gents stuff from like 5 to 9, fuck 5 to 9, 5 to 12, 5 to 1, shoots on the weekend, photo shoots. You know how many shoots have we done on countless weekends in the hot summer, in the freezing winter. But you do what it takes. You have to really ask yourself, what do you want out of life? And how much are you willing to give, really? Because nobody owes anybody anything.
Right.
And that's just, there are a lot of sacrifices. There's still sacrifices being made to this day. But I think for me, I just have to, as long as I know the sacrifices are worth it, which they seem like they are. Things have been going well for the brand so far. We're very thankful for all our wonderful customers and, partners and friends that work with the business. We got to keep it going. It's a responsibility, and it gives me a greater sense of meaning in life.
Man, and that's a real thing, bro, because we never talk about the sacrifices. We never talk about the failures.
Nobody sees that. Nobody sees that. We all just see like dope stuff on Instagram, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000. Like, man, Dre popping, man, Dre was, man, I seen you.
No, Dre.
Like, let's talk for example, about a photo shoot. Walk me through like what happens in a photo shoot. You've been in a lot of our photo shoots. A lot of times I take those pictures. How does that, everybody sees the photos with like...
Everyone sees the photos, man. But again, they don't see the meticulous planning behind the scenes, right? They don't see Spike. They don't see G, right? They don't see Tunde running back and forth. You know what I mean? They don't see Kev back there running back and forth, right? They don't see the planning, the prep, the sacrifice and moving your schedule around, the time away from your family. They don't see the mental preparation that goes into it. And what's wild is to a lot of people, it may just seem like, oh, well, he's just there taking photos. If it's a video, the countless hours of editing that video, the countless hours of photo, especially with you being how meticulous you are about photos, the countless hours of doing that. And I'm telling you, man, like the reason I was excited that you would, be the first one to kind of pop off the Introspektiv Podcast is that there is so much about Southern Gents that is so different from like this modern proliferation of menswear lines, boutiques, and different things that are popping up. You know what I mean? Like shout out Gary Vee, but he's inspired a different sort of entrepreneur who unfortunately I think is not fully prepared to make those sacrifices, right? To take time and have a corporate job and learn all of the different inner workings of a business before you just jump out there on your own. You know what I mean? I'm all for betting on yourself, but there's a prerequisite, right? There's something going on behind the scenes.
And to add to what you said, I think with entrepreneurship, it'll drive you crazy. It will drive you crazy. So for anybody who is looking to dive into entrepreneurship, you got to ask yourself, why do you want this? There's so many different types of entrepreneurships. You have entrepreneurs, you have serial entrepreneurs, you have people who are entrepreneurs with a passion. There's so many different types of entrepreneur, but for all entrepreneurs, it will consume you. And by consume you is essentially like Southern Gents is part of my identity. Like when people see me, they're expecting like some kind of like class or swag or whatever. It's just, it becomes part of you. Like you have to live and breathe whatever brand or business you decide to start. You have to put in so many hours. You have to sacrifice everything. There's a wonderful book by Simon Sinek called Leaders Eat Last. And literally that's what happens in entrepreneurship because, everybody thinks that it's going to be this big payday, this big win. It's like, look, everybody else got to be paid before you do. Right. You got to pay your manufacturers. You got to pay your employees. You got to pay the shipping companies. You got to pay the ad companies. Everybody gets paid. and you get to keep what's left, if anything at all. So it's a game of sacrifice. So if you're going to sacrifice that much, you got to really want it. You got to really want what you're getting into. And the biggest question, at least I've had to ask myself 1,000 times, why the fuck am I still doing this? It's almost like it's a crazy game. It's a crazy game because the expectations are set. Like we are in one of the best countries in the world, and that's a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing because the standard of living, like for somebody who was considered poor in this company, oh my God, like me growing up in Nigeria, I've seen like, abject poverty, like not having water to shower in the morning type poverty, like real poverty. Yeah. Begging not because you don't feel like working, because you need to eat. It's different. And so, but on the bright side, so I guess that's the bright side of being in any developed country. But on the negative side, it's so competitive and there's so much in our face. Like we're getting marketed to every minute. There's always someone who's willing to replace you. Everything's super competitive. And so when you're saying you want to do anything, you want to start a landscaping business or you wanted to get into real estate, there is 100,000 people who are in that industry. You want to be a photographer, videographer. There's somebody who's willing to outwork you. There's somebody who's willing to be cheaper than you are. So why are you doing what you're doing? And I think we are starting to get into space, at least in my opinion, where we have to stop disrespecting entrepreneurship. And putting entrepreneurship on a pedestal because it's not for everybody. I don't think everybody can do it. I mean, I think anyone can do it, but I don't think it's for everybody because the level of sacrifice.
You can't be a subpar employee and think you're going to be an entrepreneur.
Nah, you have to be. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of different types of entrepreneurs, but like in order to succeed as an entrepreneur, I mean, you could do it a different number of ways. You can just take from everyone and just, use people till you get to the top, which some people do. But for most businesses, you have to give and give and give. Even the successful people who, are more predatory, they still have to give. You have to give other people opportunity because you can never build a successful business. Show me a successful business just built by one person. It doesn't exist. And so if you're going to get...
It takes a team. They just haven't been on one before.
If you're going to get in the game, you got to ask yourself, how much are you willing to give?
Yeah.
And how bad do you really want it? But more importantly than how bad do you want it? Why do you want it? Like, what do you want? What are you doing, whatever it is for?
No, that's important, man. And, Simon Sinek also has a book, Start With Why. And,
I love Start With Why.
He talks about why it's important for you to have your mission established, before you even embark upon it, right? It's like a GPS for where you're going.
Because you'll get lost real easy if you don't. It's so easy to get lost.
You will literally get lost. Yeah. So what I did, man, was I wanted to get some questions from a couple of guys, around the United States. And, they've been following you for some time. These may even be close friends of yours. And so Jimmy out of New York. All right. So sorry, Jimmy. I don't know if Fola knows you or not. But Jimmy out of New York said, how has becoming a dad changed your life? And has it affected your goals for Southern Gents?
Man, I love that question. That gets into parenting. So I'm a new parent. My son is he's 5 going on 6 months. So I'm a new dad. Has it affected me much? I think it's made me happier. Really? Every time I just go home and I get to look at him, my wonderful wife takes care of him like most of the day. So when I get home, just looking at him playing, and it's just like, man, like just life is beautiful. I can't really believe that he came from us and that he's alive and healthy. But as far as I don't think it's motivated me anymore because my perspective on parenting has always been a little bit different. I've seen a lot of articles or videos online about, or even other people that I may know or be acquainted with, how they raise their kids. And my view on parenting is everybody wants to give their kid everything. And I think that's so, that's such a disservice to the kids, man, because a lot comes from like grit, hard work, hustle.
Tough,
like this is a crazy world.
But do you want your kids to grind like you had to grind? Is that what you want them to do? Or can they experience?
It's not about what I want. It's not about what I want. It's about what they want.
Well, I mean, do you want to structure a life that they have options?
Oh, yeah, they have to have options, but even if you have options, it's always going to be struggle, right? Like if you want to be a football player, if you want to be a business owner. Sure. So the way I look at being a parent is it's my job, and my wife's job to prepare our children for the life they want to live. We don't know. So right now we're just basically like, what an interim, you always talk about the uncle that became the dad. Oh, yeah. We're like the interim leader. Like before they get in charge of what they want to do, we're like the interim. So we have to make sure like we make them ready to be able to take the job that they want in their lives. Like whatever job you want to be a nurse, you want to be a CEO, you want to be a teacher, whatever. You want to be a welder. I don't care what my kid wants to be. I just care that
he wants to be a rapper.
You got to be the best fucking rapper, son. You got to go hard. Your videos got to be on point. I'm gonna be on that set. Like, what's up? That lighting is off. Like, man, that white balance is trash.
But you're saying if Miles said
they just have to be
a rapper,
I would be okay with that.
Okay, that's what's up.
Because I think that. But I'm going to push. I'm always going to push the why. Why do you want to be a rapper? Like, it can't be like, oh, I just want to be popping. Like, if there's not a intrinsic value that they're getting from doing whatever they want to, then I can't. I think as parents, we have to let go of control. Mm-hmm. Like, if you think about being a parent, it's crazy because it's like the one space where you're in control temporarily. And that's the key word, temporarily, in someone else's life. And it's very easy to get caught up in that control. A lot of parents get trapped into thinking that they can decide what their kids want to be. And that leads to a lot of either disappointment on their part in the future when the kid decides to do something else, or resentment in the kid because, Nigerian culture, we talk about this a lot, because your parents wanted you to do X, Y, Z. For those of us to decide to give into that pressure, you figure out one day that you're not happy, that, you are living someone else's dream. So as far as parenting goes, it's our job to provide a life of responsibility. I want to prepare my kid for the world, right? Like I want them to know, and that goes down to everything. I want them to know how hard, how ruthless, how much the world doesn't care about you, because it's really about balance. Teaching a young person, and not just my kid, I have nieces and nephews too, you're not special. You're not special. You're not any different. You're special to me. You're special to me. I got to say it. I'm sorry.
I have a daughter. And shout out to Bria, love comment.
Shout out to Bria.
Shout out to Lil Dre. Shout out to Brittany. I love you, babe. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't imagine ever looking my little baby girl in the face and telling her that she's not special. Okay, you got to unpack that for me.
Let me go a step further.
When I heard it,
you're special to me. You're special to us. But in the grand scheme of the world, you're not special. When your resume comes across someone else's desk, you're not going to put an asterisk and say, Dre Con, Miles Lawson. Oh, you're it. And that's a lesson that I think people have to learn at a very young age. Not all of us are privileged to learn that. You got to work hard for respect. Like, I know you are a connoisseur of like fragrances.
Absolutely.
Why do you like the fragrances you like?
Well, I was raised, my dad actually collected fragrances, and there's something I often say, man, forever 15 years old, God bless you. So what that means is there was this process of a perpetual learner's disposition that I had at 15. Like that's when you're learning how to do everything, right? But you're still young enough to kind of like listen and not really push back a whole lot. And at 15 was when my dad really kind of started handing me, different fragrances and to smell and what kind of seemed like something that would come and go really circled back, man, in my late 20s and something I became passionate about all over again. So that's kind of where it came from. Your question was why? Yeah, because I think that we like things that are great. Like we didn't just wake up like, like, so you got to like whatever sense that people, I think we're in a world where like everybody is trying to
tell other people that they're special just because those people are special to them.
Gotcha.
Not special to the world, right?
Gotcha.
Like Nike is Nike for a reason. Whatever company that you decide to name, like BMW or whatever brand that everyone loves, they got there for a reason. And we owe it to our young people to teach them that you have to earn respect. You have to build integrity. You have to build character. And it's never going to come easy. You're going to go through challenges in life. So I want to coach my kid through life. And so I don't have the pressure of like, man, I got a kid and I gotta leave him with this. I gotta leave him with some gems. That's good enough for me because assets, money, all these things can be taken from anyone. You know, somebody could get sued, you know, things happen, but nobody can ever take away your knowledge or your wisdom.
Wow.
So, so my whole thing is like, I want to raise children with my wife that can survive in any environment. And that's my challenge. And that right there takes, because then if they have the right skill set in any economy, the world is going to continue to change. Our parents didn't have the internet. They didn't have social media. They didn't have a lot of the things that we had. They didn't have Alexa or Siri, right? So they lived in a different world, and they literally couldn't have prepared you for this type of world, at least not from, not precisely, but they could have instilled in you certain life lessons and wisdom, tenacity, and character traits that you take on, whether it's being more sociable, whether it's having a lot of humor or being able to be charming, you know, and that's one thing that I'm super obsessed with is being able to build relationships, because I think life is all about relationships. Like I said, we all want to be admired and accepted. So if people admire and accept you and appreciate you, things will work out for you. We, as human beings, we naturally work with people who we like. There's always the great person for the job, but we always pick the best person, the best fit for our environment. Like, who do we want to be around? Who do you feel is coachable? Who do you feel is easy to work with? Who do you feel can inspire you? You know, we all want well-rounded people in our lives, whether it's your spouse or your friends. And that's where things get interesting, right? Because there's family that you're born with, and then there's family that you get to create.
This question actually comes from Richard in LA. What's the actual goal here? What message are you looking to convey to your consumers?
That's a deep question. Biggest question is less is more. Are you a fan or familiar with the concept of minimalism?
I wish I could be a minimalist, honestly, bro.
Yeah.
Like, I like stuff. You know what I mean? I would even probably say I'm somewhat of a pack rat, honestly. Like, not a hoarder. I'm just saying, like, I like things. And when I like them a lot. But I only like very specific things.
I would argue that you're a minimalist, though, because I know that, okay, you may have like a collection of fragrances, but you don't collect everything. Like,
that's true.
You know, I know like the shoes you like, the hats you like, you don't have a ton. You just have like ones that you love. And that's really, I wouldn't call myself a minimalist.
Bro,
I'm more like I'm more of an essentialist. Like meaning I buy things that I love and I know I'm going to get a lot of use out of. So as far as what are we willing to convey, like less is more. Take pride in your personal appearance and your imagery, because that's the first thing that people will always see before you speak. People see you coming before they hear you speak. So if you're able to like change up your appearance and just take pride in how you look, not only is it good for you subconsciously, it just changes the way that people address you, period.
Yeah.
And I think for us, the reason we wanted to start this brand is when we decided to get in apparel, there were a lot of things that we either couldn't find, period, weren't being made. Like, for example, let's say like boots that were like comfortable year round and weren't like super wintry or like heavy or had to be broken in. Or if we could find them, they were unaffordable. Like I know when we started making top coats, overcoats, they were like, the cheapest one that I could find was like $6.95. And
Like $695?
Yeah, not $6.95 for sure. But for me, I'm like more, as much as I'm a minimalist / essentialist, I think I'm a bigger realist. And maybe that's because I don't know if that's how I've always been, or that's a result of me being an accountant for years and, you know, a CPA or whatever. But people have limited dollars. Like we take a lot of times, companies, businesses, whatever, brands take for granted like the median household income. And we live in a world where like not everyone, a lot of people have been taught to overextend themselves. So whenever we come out with a new product, we basically, obviously there's a margin conversation. You know, we have to figure out how to, for every product, generate enough margin, profit margin to stay in business, to like cover costs and things of that nature. But also it has to meet the pocket test. And the pocket test is, can someone who's trying to live a responsible life and makes a decent amount of income, not 1% or 20%, you know, can the median household reasonably afford this product? If I've literally pushed back on manufacturers because I'm like, nah, because we're not trying to be out here selling coats to make 500. And even for us as a minority owned business, I definitely don't want us to be a business that pushes out product that majority of our people can't afford.
Wow.
Like that right there to me is a disservice to the community, because this is like, we're doing this from the heart. We want people to look better and feel better.
Yeah.
So, but I and the rest of the team wants people to also learn that if you're spending your last to look the part, you failed.
Oh, man.
Because that's not the game. Like we're trying to start here and go places. We're trying to use our style as a vehicle for wherever we're all trying to go. We as in a community. But what you're not supposed to do is wear your entire earnings on your back. Like that's just not smart. So especially for this podcast is supposed to be about the pursuit of happiness and responsible living. Like how can we take time to reflect, think about things we've been through and learn from each other and live better lives. And essentially that's what the brand is about. So it's not about coming out with a new collection every season. We're not here for that. If it's not something that can stand the test of time.
Bigger classics.
Exactly. If it's not something that can stand the test of time and that I wouldn't cherish, my friends, yourself, my brother, whoever wouldn't cherish, it's not a product that we're going to put out. And besides product, we want to put out content that enriches. We want to be able to talk about headwear. We want to be able to talk about, you know, putting together classic outfits, like essential wardrobe pieces. And we don't want to have to do that every time, right? These should be essentially like life chapters that gentlemen and women can pass along to each other from generation to generation. It's really a school of how to be.
Okay. No, I got you, man. And honestly, I'm familiar with a lot of Black brands. I mean, there are so many that have done so many good things, but I mean, you know, I'm all about self-accountability. Like, what do you think is something that we can do better as, you know, Black-owned businesses? Because, you know, there's this big push, man, you know, God, you know, RIP, man, George Floyd. And then anytime something tragic happens, we all get on the train to, okay, we need to do better at this. We need to do this. We need to do that. But in terms of being more competitive in the market and lasting longer, you know, standing the test of time, what are more things that Black-owned businesses can do?
I love that question so much. And I think it's some of the topics that we touched on earlier in our conversation. Again, we got to start with why. I think a lot of times we get excited about it being a Black brand, or we being a Black brand, or this brand being a Black brand, but what's the why? Like, why are we doing what we're doing? Is it just to say that we're a Black-owned brand? And when we're a Black-owned brand, what are we doing here? So every brand should ask themselves, essentially, whether it's like, I don't know, give me a good Black-owned brand that you enjoy.
Good Black-owned brand that I enjoy, Closet Jewels. No,
Closet Jewels. Shout out to Closet Jewels.
Right, shameless plug. Man, you know, there's Curl Oral. It's a toothbrush company.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Sorry. Another shout out there. Mo Better Brews.
Okay.
That's a restaurant that's more of an experience.
Okay.
Houston Sauce Co.
Mm-hmm.
They've also diversified themselves, set apart. Southern Gents.
Okay.
Is a black
for every
company.
brand, Southern Gents, any brand out there, there's quite a ton that I follow as well. There's World and Vision. There's a few others. There's the Brooklyn Circus. Any black-owned brand was the Brooklyn Circus or Banana Republic. Like there always should be a why. Mm-hmm. And what are we doing here? So I think as black-owned brands, we have to think about, okay, it's great, black-owned brand, but what are we doing here? What's the why? What and who are we serving, right? Mm-hmm. I think sometimes with black-owned brands, we want to compete with the majors, which there's nothing wrong with it, but there's nothing wrong with that. Like you can do whatever you want to, but a lot of the majors are going to, by definition, appeal to like the mass majority.
The masses, yeah.
So if you're a black-owned brand and you're saying your why is to, doesn't necessarily have to be the case, but if you want to also have a lot of black customers or minority customers, then we also have to have a conversation of affordability. Are we pricing our products and are we creating products and services that our demographic can reasonably afford? Because I think in a black community period, we complain a lot, which a lot of our complaints are valid, but how hypocritical is it for us to create businesses and complain about this brand being racist or, not having this specific model or not putting this Olympian on the track or whatever, all these things that we talk about. And then we go and create these businesses and then our own people can't even afford our products and services. So I think that's a challenge for us all to like focus on, and everything isn't for everybody. Just, I don't believe that just because you're a black owned brand, you have to serve black people. But,
wait. You said you don't think if they're a black owned brand, they have to serve black people?
Not necessarily. So if you are, you do some real estate, right? And if you're a real estate agent, sometimes it's not even always possible. It's not necessarily feasible to be a successful real estate agent and just focus on black clients. Like you just have to get the sale. And it's the same for us as a business too. We don't really focus on like, we would like black men and women to buy our hats, but we want everybody to buy hats. Our brand is for everyone.
It's intentionally multicultural.
But at the same time, there's definitely, we feel a natural obligation to serve our community because we are black. We're comprised of African-American, Nigerian-born owners. And so for us, we want to serve our people. We want to see our people in our clothing. And so that's just an obligation that we feel to ourselves. Like it's not fair to like just place that obligation. Oh, you're a Hispanic owned business, so you have to make sure like all Hispanic people are taken care of. But the larger picture is saying that we also have to be careful about creating these black brands that black people can't also indulge in.
Right.
And there's a lot of things that we can do better. We can do better with a sense of entitlement. And by that, I think that we feel that just because we're a black-owned brand that we get to just complain and say like, oh, like people should support. One thing I know, people who know me very closely is like, I'm not a fan of the support conversation.
What support conversation?
So sometimes people would say like, oh man, like, I heard about your business. I want to support you. And I flat out say, hey, bro, I appreciate it, but please don't feel the need to support. This is a business. It's not a charity. So if you see something you like on the site and you feel that you must have or you need to have or will make your style better or will make you happier, go ahead. We'll appreciate the purchase. But don't feel the need to buy from us just because we're black. Because first of all, that's not genuine. It's not a genuine purchase. And if it's not a genuine purchase, then it's probably not going to be consistent. So for example, if you found out this restaurant, you're driving home like, oh, black owned restaurant, blah, blah, blah. You go to eat there. You walk in and you're not really impressed with the menu or anything, but you order regardless because you're trying to support. You have the food. You taste the food when you get home. Sausage is burnt or whatever. I don't know if you're vegan, but like, you're probably not going, that was not a genuine sale. Like you felt like kind of, you did it it was a charitable donation. Yep. And one thing is, if we take a look about,
what if they do all that and like it though?
No, you should support businesses that you like for sure. Like support, and it's not necessarily support. Like, do you support Amazon?
Absolutely.
You do not intentionally. You get value from
right. So they make life very easy.
There's a big difference, and I think for Black-owned businesses, we have to let go. Our challenge is to let go of our sense of entitlement, and we actually have to focus on bringing value. Because one thing about charity is it's not consistent. The biggest businesses did not come about from charity. Amazon was not built from a charitable standpoint. Neither was Uber. These are companies that solve problems. So as we get in business, we have to learn to solve problems, and we also have to learn to be competitive. Where are we going to compete? Are we going to offer a better price to the consumer? Are we going to bring about better quality, better information, better transparency? There has to be some sort of competitive advantage, but I think the narrative of support Black businesses does more harm than good. Because again, the business is about the long game. And if we all have limited dollars, we're not going to be able to keep businesses in business by just supporting with cause. Now, if we learn to transact with businesses that we love, are Black owned, and provide us value, now that's a win-win for all parties. So I think we just need to learn how to serve the consumer better. And it's challenging, like we discussed earlier. There's a lot of manufacturing challenges. There's a lot of advertising challenges. Even like finding space, like real estate, commercial real estate, you know, like there's a lot of, it's an uphill battle for sure. And so, I think that if we're able to figure out also, this is my last point on the being a minority-owned business, there's a bigger world out there. We have to learn how to serve our populace, our community, and serve the world at large. As Black people, we only make up 13% of the United States.
I don't believe that, by the way.
Okay. What would you say? What percentage would you say?
I have no idea.
You got to give me a guesstimate.
I would say at least 20.
Okay, let's say we make 20%. What percent of that 20% makes a household income of $60K or more?
You said what percentage of the 20%? Mm-hmm. $60K or more? Probably 20%.
So 20 of 20?
Yeah.
So we're down to 4%?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd say
so. So how do we expect to survive off catering to a market of 4%?
You can't.
And so when you create a business, it's really for everyone. I mean, you could create a successful Black business, don't get me wrong, but it's like in the same way, think about if employers were just trying to employ who they wanted to hire. I mean, sometimes you just have to get whoever's best for the job. You have to open up the market. Yep. You know, we have to learn that there's a bigger world out there. And you know, in our experience, we've also seen a lot of pressure from some of our customers who feel like we should only appeal to,
which doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't really make any sense.
I've had that argument in my mind, and I've tried to make it make sense, but no successful business does that. No successful business only.
Not Home Depot. Not HEB,
you know,
not Coca-Cola. It's for everyone.
Right.
And, you know, we have to be race conscious, but we also have to be progressive.
That's tough, man. That's low-key a radical statement, Fola.
Well,
because it makes so much sense, but it's not something that you hear people really talk about a lot. You know, like FUBU, for us, by us, right? And unfortunately, like FUBU is probably the only brand who was able to maintain their business in a way that it's for us, by us, and like actually maintain that all the way through until they, you know, I
mean, that was a slogan, but do you really believe that? Like, cause I had white friends in high school who wore the hell out of FUBU. So, I mean, it was a clever slogan, but it was the same principle. I mean, if we had the same metrics that we had today to track demographic and all this type of things through iPhones and Androids and stuff, we'd probably learn that FUBU was not all, you know, did not become FUBU without the support of a lot of other communities, the Latin community, you know, FUBU was mad popping in Miami in the Hispanic community. And so it's really, success is dependent on all people. Right. And so we have to, I think the challenge for us all, and not just Black-owned brands, for our non-minority friends and customers as well, is to not look down on Black brands. We're not lesser because it's Black-owned. And if it's a Black-owned restaurant or a Black-owned business, it shouldn't be viewed as a charity either. Right. Why does it have to be less than, except we're digging into the opinion or the mindset that things that are created by Black people are in fact inferior. And so these are like difficult social conversations, but I think for us all, in order for us to find our way and grow as a community, we all have to learn to coexist.
Mm. Okay. And I think that's those are valid points, man. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying that it's if I shut my brain off and just hear what you said, I know there's so much context behind that. You know what I mean? Like, because as Black-owned brands, in some spaces, we do need to improve our quality in some spaces. But there's also other brands that need to improve their quality and space. And I just hate when Black-owned brands get that narrative assigned to them. I think it's Gary Vee says it best. I think it's all about awareness. Like, we have to know what game we're getting into. So, we talk about football and sports a lot. If I'm cornerback and I'm 5'8", right? 5'9", and I'm over here lined up against... They're 6'2" nowadays.
Okay. I'm lined up against DK Metcalf, 6'4".
No
he
thanks.
runs a 4'4".
No thanks.
I have to know what game I'm playing. He's large. He's bigger than me. He's fast, if not slightly faster than I am. I have to think about what my competitive advantage is going to be. He's not going to outthink me. I'm going to confuse him. I'm going to throw different, you know what I mean? So when we get in the space, I think that's a lot of things. One of the things that we're not willing to accept is that automatically any Black-owned business is going to be viewed as inferior. So that means that you really have to deliver on quality to defy the stereotype. You mentioned, I laughed and I didn't make a statement, but earlier you like, man, I know how meticulous you are with the photos. It ain't me, bro. It ain't me. It's the gram. It's the social media. So my perspective is, if someone else is not going to be willing to share this, screenshot it, post it on their story or their page or whatever, why are we posting this picture? Because we want to create product and imagery that transcends culture. So you really have to put your all, because the narrative has been written and we can't argue with it. The mindset, the thought is that things that come from Black people are less than. So for us who come into space, if it's a restaurant, if it's a service, like, I don't know, if you're a realtor, whatever you're doing, you have to know that the playing field is not level. You have to over-deliver, under-promise and over-deliver every time. Yeah. So it's not a fair world. We just have to be okay with it, grind it out. And people will respect quality. People always we as individuals, we know how to seek out value.
Okay, so I hear you. And I think the right consumer will respect quality. And one thing that I've been struggling with, and I don't even really know how to frame this. I don't really know how to appropriately address this topic. But we talk about often how you have something of quality, something that's a good message, right? And you post it, and it could be potentially life-changing for someone. And just based on how we think as humans, no one even pays attention to it. Life-changing quote, something that is actually going to inspire someone. No one ever pays attention to it. But if there's someone who's half naked on the ground, bro.
Where you going with this?
2 million likes, right?
Yeah.
2 million likes. So what I'm saying is that we're in all of this, man. Like, you said it's not about the image. It's not about, that. It's about the gram and what people want and the effect that you want to have on people. I'm saying that, unfortunately, we're a part of our own demise in that way, because Instagram's an algorithm. Instagram is a computer. Right?
It shows you more of what you want to see.
It's going to show you more of what you want to see. And I mean, how frustrating is that?
You know where you're going with this, I think? Accountability. So we got to start looking at ourselves in the mirror. So,
tough,
we complain about the things that we don't like, but how much do we do the things like people, there's not this, there's not that. Like I've seen a lot of great businesses fail because, the demand just isn't there. Like, let's take, for instance, just like lounges. Lounges are just like, not super popular or more of a like relax and chill spots. When they exist, no one goes. And when they close, everyone complains. So essentially, we got to put our money where our mouth is. And that goes the same for like any business, any establishment. But at the end of the day, I think that it's time for us to put the pedal to the metal. Like we really have to be the change that we want to see, us all on both sides, on the consumer side. And I'm included in this too, So if we want to see more companies be able to empower, sponsor athletes, or produce events, if you're not in the room, right, it's more than likely not going to happen. So we have to start building our own ship. We have to kind of get away from always wanting someone else to do things that are in our favor. It just doesn't work that way.
And it's tough, man. It actually makes me think about a time when, you remember when Jay-Z was invited to the NFL, to have a discussion with the owners. And
he got fried for that.
He got cooked. Yeah. I was like, dang, like, what do we want? What do we want? You know what I mean? What's ever going to be good enough?
That was a crazy time. I was so frustrated when all that was going on because we complained as a community so much about not being listened to, all the unfairness with it was specifically about Kaepernick and, athletes having more say and being listened to, being able to protest. And, this is a deep conversation. But yeah, he was in a room and he had the same thing when Steve Harvey met with Donald Trump. So
he met with him bigly.
But yeah, it's like we got to get in the room. We got to be able to make certain conversations. We got to, let our voices be heard. But in order for anyone to hear you, you have to have some kind of value, right? You have to bring some kind of, you have to be seen as valuable. And I think that that's the fabric of the racial undertone and a lot of the, discriminatory practices in America is like, we're not willing to have these conversations. Like we have to start talking about what this really means, the concept of racism, why it exists. And if it's possible to get rid of it, if it's not possible to get rid of it, I think it will continue to die down. But like, where do we go from here? Like, what can we do to have better lives? How can we hold those around us, right? Like our white, Hispanic, Asian coworkers, right? What are you doing for the cause? What are we doing for other people's causes? Because we also have a history of wanting everyone to partake in our causes, but then when it comes to another cause, when it's an Asian cause or whatever, we're not part of it. And it's like, this is just like, it goes back to just being clicked up, right? Like, if I'm going through something and you not holding me down, like, look.
So let me say this. You're right. Okay.
I'm not trying to be right. I could care less about being right.
I know that. But I want to say that you're right for the purpose of giving the Black perspective, right? Because I don't want to argue that Black people shouldn't be a part of everyone's causes, because those people certainly support us. But the context of what it's like to be Black in America, man, it is unlike anyone else's story.
Agreed. No argument there.
And there are no reparations that can make it go away. There are no apologies that can make it go away. There's actually nothing that can make it go away, really. There's only generations and generations and generations of repair and love that need to take place, bro. And it starts with the families.
Agreed. So I think for me, what are we going to do about it? Like, what are you and I going to do about it? What are we as individuals going to do about it? Whether it's in interracial or just within our own families. We all have to come together and build stuff together. We have to hold each other accountable. Anything an unfair practice, I don't care. Like somebody killing an Asian person and somebody killing a black, like if it's being overlooked, it's a problem. And for us to have an attitude that it's only not okay when it's happening to us is not very constructive, because when we need someone to like be at our beck and call, we're not going to have them, and we can't overcome these obstacles together. Let's put this in context. Most of our manufacturers are in Asian countries. Our footwear manufacturers are in Spanish, in Spain, in European countries. So we can't get very far without the help of other races. So the sooner we realize that we have to learn how to come together, and it's not going to be easy, and it's going to take a lot of forgiveness internally, right? We have to learn to forgive each other first and forgive outsiders. I don't think we're going to get very far. Like I told you, I'm a realist, bro. Like to me, it's like, where are we going with this? Because I'm not the type who we're going to sit and complain about what is the alternative, right? Because if we said, oh, black owned, black this, black only, we wouldn't even have a business. Yeah. So if we have one of the best suppliers in a certain industry willing to make stuff for us, and they're like, oh, you guys got to make 1,000 pieces. I don't know that we can sell this product to 1,000 black consumers. We need in order to keep this ship going forward, where we want to inspire as many black young men and women to do better in our lives, we need others. We need everyone. It's a communal obligation. It's not just for any one race. We have to hold everybody accountable, and sky's the limit. You know, I believe in just like focusing on your goals and just doing your best. It won't all happen in one lifetime. Yeah. But you know how I feel. What are we spending our lives doing?
That's tough, man. And that's Baynard Rustin, bro. That's strength in numbers. That's strength in unity. Mm-hmm. And the reality is we can definitely go a lot further together. And I get that. Mm-hmm. It's just, man, repairing the heart and soul of the African American, bro, is and the black. It's
the key to happiness. It's the key to happiness. I think it's not impossible. We just have to be willing to accept that that's the probably only way to move forward. And anything else is it's a wild dream. I mean, it's a wild dream. If we look at the demographic of the country that we live in, the proof is in the pudding.
Well, it's just, I don't know, man. It's just so insane that such a small percentage of the population can create such enormous rifts. Like literally.
We're powerful people. We're powerful people. We just have to use our power purposefully. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'll say to that. But like in a nutshell, I think that for our brand, and for me, my goal personally is to just teach as many people as we can through Southern Gents how to design their own lives, their own life. You know, like you can literally live the life that you want. And I could go on for days on that topic, but I think that also we've gotten to a place where we all want an Instagram unrealistic lifestyle. And I think it's high time that we learn how to practice contentment.
Tough, man.
Being okay with owning less, you know, being okay with a decent income, because everything comes at a cost. You want to make I have them. I've had one. You have one. Having a high income job requires a lot of you, and it's going to take you away from family. So we have to consistently audit ourselves, audit our partners, and make sure. There's a reason couples grow together, because they're not having the right conversation. Where are we going with this? What are we trying to accomplish? And I really believe that we sell ourselves short of how much in control of our lives we really are.
Yeah, and we're definitely the captain of the ship, man. And what's wild is if you really put like history into context right now, we are in the place that we can really influence some serious change for the generations to come. You know, the young kids, man, they're a little crazy, but they have so many opportunities that even we didn't have.
What do you think is stopping us?
What do I think is stopping us?
Yeah, what do you think is stopping us?
I think we're stopping ourselves in a lot of ways. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some very real and apparent systematic ways that we are held back. But I, for one, haven't used that as an excuse for my life ever, right? I've never used being Black as an excuse. I've actually used it as a strength, right? I really think that having diversity in any situation is a plus. Having the diversity in the workplace is a plus. On any team is a plus. And on any school of thought, right? And a mastermind, having a diversity is great, because you're going to think one way and reach a certain sect of people. You're going to think one way and reach a certain sect of people. You're going to think one way and reach a certain sect of people. Mm-hmm. So I've always used me being the Black guy, right? And unfortunately, in the corporate world, there's not very many opportunities for us. Or at least there's not very many opportunities that are presented, or there may not be a lot of opportunities that we're formidable for.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's due in part of, and I'm going to speak from a place of accountability, and then I'm going to talk about the other things. We don't have the temperament, right? As a Black man right now, I'm going to tell you, right? Whenever things happen, I first think what I really want to say and how I really want to feel about it. And then I got a code switch, right? Which there's another modern proliferation of no code switching and no this and no that. And I'm like, okay, it's great that you put yourself in that position. But in order for me to communicate effectively, in order for me to have my message well received, I'm going to have to say it a certain way, right? That doesn't mean that I'm not going to be authentically myself, because I have this thing that I do. And you know how Hispanics have Spanglish? Well, they're just kind of throwing some Spanish at the end of an English sentence. So I'll use the same thing, and I'll maybe give some sort of grandiose professional statement, and say like, you know what I mean? At the end, you know what I'm talking about? I like that, right? And then some of my clients have even pointed it out and said, "Did you just say you know what I'm talking about?" I was like, "Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, though, don't
break
you?"
The ice.
They do, right? So, and they love to see it, and that's what I'm saying. When I say that we don't have the temperament, what I'm saying is largely we haven't put ourselves in places that require the discipline to harness your emotions in such a way.
And now I got to quiz you. What do you think? How do you think that's a big one? I think temperament is important, like being able to like be in any room and just like maneuver and being able to have necessary conversations. Because I told you earlier that I believe that relationships are key. So what do you think that, I'm curious to hear from you, what do you think that we can do as Black men or even minority men because you said we don't put ourselves in these places, like, so for a young man, like what can he or she do better to be able to have those certain skill set and characteristics to be able to like maneuver these situations?
I would say, and I've had this conversation with my younger cousin, man. He just graduated from Howard, and let's let him remain unnamed. I don't want to embarrass him, but I was like, bro, you are trying to skip steps, right? You're trying to skip the hard part, right? Go get the first job. Get the first job first. Get the experience. Get kicked in the nuts. Fall on your face. Make mistakes, take L's now, so that when you're presented with those same opportunities, you're more formidable, like you're ready, right? Like take professional classes, learn about body language, learn about posturing, learn about, how to, neurolinguistic programming. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Who put you on to all this stuff?
Man, honestly, I learned all these things while I was failing and getting kicked in the nuts. I was sitting in my meetings,
walk me through like a scenario where like this actually happened and you felt like, man, I'm not ready for this opportunity. Like, you were in a meeting or you had a presentation. Like, can you give me an example?
Schlumberger, 2013, circa 2013. And a lot of my professional growth happened in a very short span. I remember our global assets manager, Lero, was in town from Argentina. And he pulled up on me and he just started randomly asking me about all of these facts and figures about my business or about what I was responsible for.
Yeah, your business entity,
right?
Business unit.
My business unit, right, which was managed pressure drilling at the time. He started asking me all these questions and drilling me. I mean, really drilling me on a bunch of things that I unfortunately didn't know, right? So I realized that I was the only guy dumb enough to take that position because I was super underqualified for it. And that time, that was the worst oil and gas recession before this one. So I saw it as a major opportunity to take this job that I was very underqualified for, that was going to help to propel my career to where it is now. But to answer your question, man, what he did was he asked me some very specific questions about my entities, my inventory, my business line, assets, and I wasn't prepared for that conversation right then and there. The embarrassment that I felt, the disappointment in myself that I felt, I just felt like I felt like a loser. I was angry, right? But only at myself because I didn't know. And then I became angry at him because I'm thinking like, bro, like, why would you put me on the spot like this? You know, you just talked to me, an hour ago and mentioned that I wouldn't have much to share in the meeting at all. But then he starts to roll down all these things. So what that taught me was in that moment, bro, you better be prepared always. Always be prepared to speak to your business. You need to learn when to hold them. You need to know when to fold them. You need to know when to walk away. You need to know when to run. And unfortunately, man, this is what makes my heart bleed. Everywhere that the young black man looks right now in his early maturation process, the ones that are either going into college or maybe they're well into college, everything that they see, it doesn't talk about that. It doesn't say, man, go take the hard way. Take the L's, bro. Like
sign up for Toastmasters,
right?
Something.
Yeah, sign up for Toastmasters, man. Invest in yourself and in your own professionalism, right? And I'm not trying to circle this back to S-Gents, but that's how I fell in love with the brand originally. Because when we first kind of started getting connected, that's where I was at in life. I was there at Schlumberger, like trying to figure out, like, man, how can I differentiate myself? Not in a pretentious way. Like, this is very intentional. I'm doing this because I want to set myself apart, and I want people to know that this guy is very intentionally educating himself on how things should be, on things that are very obscure to the masses. Right. So that's just the things that people they don't want to do that though, bro. Like everybody, look, this kid is a millionaire for making YouTube videos. They want to do stuff like that.
It's much easier to get mad and blame others and other than take accountability. And that was a beautiful story for me because I can definitely relate. I've definitely been in situations where like I felt like my card was pulled before, but like I remember my first job at the accounting firm. I was kind of like by the copier. I was shuffling some paper and I was just like just getting ready for like a client assignment or whatever. And one of the principals, he walked over to the table and he had this large envelope in his hand and he just kind of like slid it across the table like towards me. Never gave me, I'd seen him a couple of times in the office, so I knew who he was. And he just kind of like slid this paper to me and it's like, I really didn't know. I was like, he never said hello. He never said good morning, whatever. So I looked at the envelope and it was addressed to some company and I didn't know what happened. So I thought about it and I said, he must think I work in the mailroom.
Oh, wow.
And then I said, okay. So I grabbed the envelope and I took it to one of the executive administrators and I said, hey, such and such just handed me this. I think he wanted it to get to you. And she just kind of like, her eyes kind of like was startled. But and eventually, obviously, this was during an internship, by the way. I was an intern. Okay. So
that kind of changes things.
But it just showed me like, man, people, if I kind of was a little bit annoyed by it, but I more so internalized and like say, what I learned from the situation is like, this is what this person thinks of me, like without even knowing me. And so I got to know him a little bit better. He, ran into me a couple more times, one time in the elevator, and I could see the embarrassment in his face. But for me, what I took that as was, this is what people think someone like me should be doing in this environment. Wow. So I think that was for me one of the first times, and I wasn't dressed like in a bad way. I was probably dressed up pretty nicely, but I also wasn't probably in like a suit or whatever. But I'm like, man, I'm a at every opportunity I get, I'm going to weaponize myself, whether it's the way I speak, the way that I dress. Like, I never wanted to feel so disrespected again. And it's much easier to I could have just gotten mad, but like I took that moment and I internalized it and took it to think about how I could make myself better. Because I think for me, I realized that it's not an isolated situation.
No,
it's not an isolated occurrence. So what can I do about this to make the likelihood of this less likely to happen in the future? Wow. And that's it, man. I think in a lot of situations, we just have to think through what every situation makes us feel like. And I'm a big advocate of self. What can I do about it?
Yeah.
Biggest fan and believer in control what you can control.
Yeah.
And don't worry about the rest. Everything else will fall into place. And that's really just it. That's the story of how I've gone about everything that my personal involvement in the brand, how I treat my friends, and how I handle myself in my personal life.
That's good, man. That's good, man. Fola Lawson, man, the phantom behind the brand.
Stop, please.
Man, it's been
not
so
a phantom.
good. It's been so good, man. Seriously though, bro. Like, because people see Southern Gents and they see the imagery and they see the clothes and they see the hats, but there's so much intentionality. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes. And, hopefully, man, people will hear this and understand the brand a little bit more, what the mission is. But if you can make one sentence, one takeaway, one thing that you want people to get out of this exchange, out of this conversation, man, the first introspection, what would it be?
I would have to say, think about what you're doing with your time here. I remember a couple of years ago, my father-in-law had a stroke. He had an aneurysm, and my wife and I went to visit him in Arizona. He was in the ER. He was hemorrhaging really badly in his brain. So they had
I saw my dad die, by the way.
Oh yeah. Condolences. So we were in a hospital room in the ER, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., bunch of family. And, this is a beautiful space because, it just gives me an opportunity to reflect because, and I love that we decided to, thanks for pushing me on this. We decided to call this introspective because a lot of times we don't really get back to think about how things have affected us. And I mean, that's my wife's father. Yeah. And, he was, I don't know if he was 70 yet, but if he was 70, he was like very early 70s, if not like late 60s. And I just looked outside that window and I looked at him in the bed and I kind of saw myself. And by saw myself, what I meant was every one of us is going to be in this bed one day.
Wow, man.
With the monitor going beep, 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 nurses coming in, like starry eyes, not knowing if tomorrow's going to come.
Yeah.
And it just made me think, like, how much time do we really have left? How much time do I really have left?
Yeah.
And how do I want to spend my days? And I'm very thankful for the opportunities I've had having to sit in office spaces for 12, 13, 14, 15-hour days doing the same thing over and over and over again. Because had it never been for those experiences, I never probably would have had the ambition or the sense of urgency to say, enough is enough. Like, I have more that I want to get out of life. I want to do things that inspire other people. I want to build with people that I love. I want to work with people that are my friends and I consider family, like yourself, and look back, because those to me are the most beautiful times of life, man. It's like man. we can never get time back, man. And when I think about some of the best moments in my life, having my first son, marrying my wife, great times that we've had, having a conversation. It was never when I bought a certain car or when I took a certain trip. it's always been experiences, and it's always been about how I spend time with the people I love. So what I just want everybody to get out of this is to learn to stretch our time. And because that's the only thing we can't get back. We can lose money, we can get stuff repossessed, we can get fired from jobs, but we can never get time back. So, let's start with why, and let's all make the most out of the little time that we do have here. And, that's it for me, man. This has been a pleasure. And, thanks for drilling me.
Absolutely, man, bro. Look, ladies and gentlemen, that is what Southern Gents is all about, right? You can see the product. You can see the imagery again, the story behind why Southern Gents came to be about, how Southern Gents came to be about. That's what I wanted people to hear today, man. So I appreciate you joining, man. Introspektiv Podcast, first episode. Definitely looking forward to doing this a lot more.
I can't wait for the next one. Man. Yeah, man. Thanks for pushing us to put this together. And I'm sure we'll have a lot of fun. I'm sure there's a lot of information that we'll draw from great guests in the future. And sky's the limit. Let's learn from each other. Let's build communities. And let's stop wasting time in the past, and let's drive forward and fast in the future.
Man. We should have called the podcast "Stop Wasting Time."
Stop wasting time, man. That's it. Let's inspire to inspire, and let's be great.
Here we go, man. Appreciate you, bro. Cheers.
Thanks. Love you, bro.
Love you too, man.